BRAHMA PURANA. Om Shakti Hrim, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. There was a forest known as Naimisharanya. The sages, Maharishis, arranged for a sacrifice yajna in this forest, and the ceremony went off for 12 years. Naimisharanya forest was a wonderful place to arrange sacrifice in. The climate was pleasant, there were trees full of flowers and fruits. There was no shortage of food in the forest, and animals, birds and sages lived there happily. Many sages came to attend the sacrifice that had been arranged in Naimisharanya. With them was Ramaharshana, Vedavyas' disciple. Vedavyasa had instructed this disciple of his in the knowledge of the Puranas. The assembled sages worshipped the learned Ramaharshana and said, "Please tell us the stories of the Puranas. Who created the universe, who is preserver, and who will destroy it? Please instruct us in all these mysteries." Ramaharshana replied, "Many years ago, Daksha and the other sages had asked Brahma these very questions. I have learned about Brahma's reply from my Guru teacher Vedavyasa. I will relate to you what I know. In the beginning there was water everywhere, and the Brahman, the divine essence, slept on this water in the form of Vishnu. Since water is called Nara, and since Ayana means a bed, Vishnu is known as Narayana. In the water there emerged a golden egg, Anda. Brahma was born inside this egg. Since he created himself, he is called Swayambhu, born Bhu by himself, Swayam. For 1 whole year, Brahma lived inside the egg. He then split the egg into two and created heaven, Svarga, and the earth, Prithvi, from two parts of the egg. Skies, directions, time, language, and senses were created in both heaven and earth. From the powers of his mind, Brahma gave birth to 7 great sages. Their names were Marichi, Atri, Angira, Puvastya, Puvaha, Kratu, and Vasishka. Brahma also created the god Rudra and the sage Sanat Kumara. To continue with the process of creation, Brahma gave birth to a man and a woman from his own body. The man was named Swayambhuva Manu, and the woman was named Shatarupa. Humans are descended from Manu, that is the reason they are known as Manava. Manu and Shatarupa had 3 sons named Vira, Priyavrata, and Uttanapada. Uttanapada's son was the great Dhruva. Dhruva performed very difficult meditation tapasya for 3,000 divine years. Brahma was so pleased at this that he granted Dhruva an eternal place in the sky near the constellation that is known as Saptarishi of the 7 sages. This is the constellation Ursa Majoris, and Dhruva is a pole star. In Dhruva's line there was a king named Pachinavarchi. Pachinavarchi had 10 sons known as Prachitas. These Prachitas were supposed to look after the world and rule over it, but they were not interested in such mundane matters. They went off instead to perform tapasya under the ocean. The tapasya went off for 10,000 years. The upshot was that the earth had no ruler and began to suffer. People started to die, and thick forests sprouted everywhere. So thick were the forests that even the winds could not blow. News of this catastrophe reached the Prachitas. They were furious with the trees and created wind, Vayu, and fire, Agni, from their mouths. The wind dried up the trees, and the fire burned them, so that very soon there were very few trees left on earth. Everyone was alarmed at the effect of the Prachitas' anger. The moon god Soma or Chandra came to the Prachitas with a beautiful woman and said, "Prachitas, please control your anger. You need someone to rule over the world, so that you concentrate on your tapasya." This beautiful woman is named Maricha. She is the daughter of the trees. Marry her and you will have a son named Daksha. He will rule over the world. The Prachitas agreed to the proposal and Daksha was born. The word Praja means subject. The word Pati means master. Since Daksha ruled over the world and its subject, Daksha came to be known as Prajapati. The sages interrupted Ramaharshana. They said, we are completely confused. We have heard that Daksha was born from Brahmas too. And yet you have told us that Daksha was the son of the Prachitas. How is possible? Ramaharshana replied, there is no reason for bewilderment. Many Dakshas have been born to rule over the world. One was born from Brahmas too, yet another was the son of the Prachitas. Daksha's wife was named Asikli, and Asikli gave birth to 5,000 sons. They were known as the Haryashvas. The Haryashvas were destined to rule over the world. But the sage Narada went to Haryashvas and said, how can you rule over the world if you don't even know what the world looks like? Are you familiar with its geography and its limits? First find out about these things before you contemplate ruling over the world. The Haryashvas went off to explore the world and never returned. Daksha and Asikli then had another 1,000 sons, who were named the Shavaashvi. Narada told them what he had told the Haryashvas, and the Shavaashvi also went off to explore the world and never returned. Daksha and Asikli were distressed that their children should disappear in this manner. Daksha blamed Narada for the instigation and proposed to kill him. But Brahma intervened and pursued Daksha to control his anger. This Daksha agreed to do provided this is his condition were met. Brahma must marry my daughter Priya, he said, and Narada must be born as Priya's son. These conditions were accepted. In fact, Daksha and Asikli had 60 daughters. 10 of them, these daughters, were married to the god Dharma or Yamaraja, and 13 to the sage Kashyapa. 27 daughters were married to Soma or Chandra. The remaining daughters were married to the sages Arishtanemi, Vahuputra, Angirasa, and Krishashva. The 10 daughters who were married to the god Dharma, Yamaraja, were named Anunhati, Vasu, Yami, Lamba, Banu, Marutvati, Sankalpa, Muhurta, Sankhya, and Vishva. Arunhati's children were the object of the world, Vishaya. Vasu's children were the 8 gods known as the Vasu, lights of the matter. Their names were Apa, Dhruva, Soma, Thara, Saliva, Anava, Pratyusha, and Prabhasa. Anava's son was Kumara. Because Kumara was brought up by goddesses known as the Kritikas, he came to be called Kartikeya. Prabhasa's son was Vishvakarma. Vishvakarma was skilled in architecture and the making of jewelry. He became the architect of the god. Sankhya's children were the gods known as the Sankhya Devas, and Vishva's children were the gods known as Vishvadevas. The 27 daughters of Daksha who were married to Soma are known as the Nakshatras, stars. As you have already been told, Kashyapa married 13 of Daksha's daughters. Their names were Aditi, Diti, Danu, Arishta, Surasa, Khasa, Surabhi, Vinata, Tamra, Krothavasha, Iva, Kadru, and Muni. Aditi's sons were the 12 gods known as the Adityas. Their names were Vishnu, Shakra, Aryama, Dhata, Vidhata, Tvashta, Pusha, Vivasvana, Savita, Mitravaruna, Amsha, and Bhaga. Diti's sons were the Daityas, demons. They were named Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and among their descendants were several other powerful deities like Vali and Vanasura. Deity also had a daughter named Simhika, who was married to a Danava demon named Viprachiti. Their offsprings were terrible demons like Vatapi Namuchi, Ilvala Maricha, and Nivata Kavachas. The 100th son of Danu came to be known as Danavas. The Danavas were thus cousin to the deities and also to the Adityas. In the Danava line were born demons like the Pulomas and Kalakeyas. Arishta's sons were the Gandharvas, singers of the heaven. Surasa gave birth to the snakes, Sarpa. Khasa's children were the Yakshas, demigods who were the companions of Kubera, the god of wealth, and the Rakshasas, demons of killing. Surabhi's descendants were cows and buffaloes. Vinata had two sons named Aruna and Garuda. Garuda became the king of the birds. Tamra had 6 daughters. From these daughters were born owls, eagles, vultures, crows, waterfowl, horses, camels, and donkeys. Krodhavasha had 14,000 children known as Nagas, snakes. Ila gave birth to trees, creepers, shrubs, and bushes. Kadru's sons were also known as Nagas or snakes. Among the more important of Kadru's sons were Ananta, Vasuki, Takshaka, and Nahusha. Muni gave birth to the Apsaras, dancers of heaven. Diti's children, Daityas, and Aditya's children, Adityas, continually fought among themselves. On one particular occasion, the gods succeeded in killing many of the demons. Thirsting for revenge, Diti began to pray to her husband, Kashyapa, that she might give birth to a son who would kill Indra, the king of the gods. Kashyapa found it difficult to refuse his wife outright. "All right," he said, "you will have to bear the son in your womb for 100 years, and throughout this period you will have to observe various rites of cleanliness. If you can successfully do this, your son will indeed kill Indra. But if you don't observe these instructions to the letter, your desire will not be satisfied." Diti resolved to do as her husband had bidden her, but Indra had got to know about Diti's resolve and waiting for an opportunity to serve himself. There was an occasion when, tired after her prayers, Diti went to sleep without first washing her feet. This was an unclean act, and it gave Indra the required opportunity. He adopted a minuscule form and entered Diti's womb. With his weapon, Vajra, he sliced up the baby and split the womb into 7 parts. The baby naturally began to cry at the pain. Indra kept on saying Maruda, that is, don't cry, but the baby, or rather its 7 parts, would not listen. Indra thereupon sliced upon each of the 7 parts into 7 more sections, so that there were 49 sections in all. So he created 7 Rudras and 49 Marutas. When these 49 sections were born, they came to be known as the Maruts, from the words that Indra had addressed them, since deity had not been able to adhere to the condition her husband had set, that Maruts did not kill Indra. They instead became Indra's followers or companions, and were treated as gods. In Krua's line was a king named Anga. Anga was religious and followed the writer's path. But unfortunately, Anga's son Vena inherited none of the good qualities of his father. Vena's mother was Sunitha, and she happened to be the daughter of Mrityu. Mrityu was notorious for his evil ways and deeds. Vena spent a lot of time with his maternal grandfather and picked up these evil characteristics. Vena gave up the religion that was laid down in the Vedas and stopped all yajnas. He instructed his subjects that he alone was to be worshipped. The sages led by Marichi came to Vena to try and persuade him to mend his ways, but Vena was in no mood to listen. He insisted that there was no one equal to him in the whole universe. The sages realized that Vena was a lost cause. They physically caught hold of Vena and began to knead his right thigh. From this kneading they emerged a horrible-looking creature. It was a dwarf, and its complexion was extremely dark. The sage's artery was so exhausted at the dwarf's appearance that he blurted out Nishida, which means sit. From this the dwarf came to be known as creatures Nishada. The race of Nishadas became hunters and fishermen and lived in the Vindhya mountains. From them were also descended uncivilized races like Tusharas and Tunduras. The evil that was in Vena's body and mind came out with the emergence of the Nishada. When the sages began to knead Vena's right arm, Prithu emerged. He shone like a flaming fire, and his energy lit up for 4 directions. He held a bow in his hand, and he was clad in a beautiful armor. As soon as the Prithu was born, Vena died. All the rivers and the ocean arrived with their waters and their jewels to anoint Prithu as a king. The gods and the sages also came for the coronation. Brahma himself crowned Prithu the king of the earth. He also took the opportunity to apportion out the lordship of other parts of the universe. Soma was appointed lord over creepers, herbs, stars, nakshatras, planets, grahas, sacrifice, meditation, tapasya, and over the first of the 4 classes Brahmanas. Varuna became lord of the ocean, Kubera of all the kings, Vishnu of all the Adityas, Agni of all Vasu, Daksha of all Prajapatis, Indra of Maruts, Prahvada of Daityas and Danavas, Yamaraja of Pitris and Kestas, Shiva of Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pishachach, Siddhi, Vidyadhara, and the Himalaya of the mountains. The ocean Samudra was made the lord of all rivers. Chitraradha of Gandharvas, Vasuki of Nagas, Takshaka of Sarpas, snakes, Garuda of birds, the tiger of deer, Airavata of elephants, Uchashrava of horses, the bull of cows, and the Ashvatha tree, a banyan tree of all trees. Brahma also appointed 4 overlords, Dikpalas, for the 4 direction. To the east there was Sudhanva, to the south Shankhapada, to the west Ketumana, and to the north Hiranyaroma. Prithu was a king who ruled the earth well. During his reign, the earth was laden with food grains. The cows were full of milk, and the subjects were happy. To glorify King Prithu, the sages performed a sacrifice, and from this sacrifice there emerged 2 races known as the Sutas and the Magadhas. The sages decreed that henceforth these 2 races would be given the task of singing praise in honor of great kings and holy personage. But first they desired that the Sutas and the Magadhas should sing praises in honor of King Prithu. But what praise will we sing? Asked the Sutas and the Magadhas. Prithu is still young, he was not done much that can be praised. That may be true, replied the sages, but he will do wondrous deeds in the future. Sing praise of those wonderful deeds. we will tell you about them. Having learned of these virtue deeds from the sages, the Suttas and the Magadhas began to compose songs and chant praises in honor of Prithu. These stories were related throughout the earth. Some of the Prithu's subjects heard these stories and came to see Prithu. King, they said, we have heard of your great deeds, but we find it difficult to make a living. Please indicate to us our habitation on earth, and tell us where we may be able to get the food we need for subsistence. King Prithu picked up his bow and arrow. He decided to kill the ass, since the ass was not yielding food grains of his subject. The ass adopted the form of a cow and began to flee. But wherever the ass went, Prithu followed with his bow and arrow. He followed the ass to the heaven, to the underworld. Finally, in desperation, the ass started to pray to Prithu. King, she said, please control your anger. I am a woman. Killing me will only mean a sin for you. Besides, what purpose will killing me serve? Your subject will then be without a place to live in. There must be some other way of ensuring that your subject can make a living. The ass then herself offered a solution, and King Prithu did her bidding. With his bow he leveled out the ass. The plains could not now be used for village and cities and for agriculture and animal husbandry. The mountains were gathered together in select places instead of being littered over the whole earth. Early Prithu's subject had lived off fruits and roots. Now Prithu milked the ass in her form of a cow and obtained the seeds of food grains on which people could live. Because of Prithu's deeds, the ass came to be known as Prithvi. A manvantara is an era. There are 4 smaller eras, yugas, and their names are Satya or Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Each circle of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga is called a Mahayuga. A Mahayuga comprised of 12,000 years of the gods, or equivalent 4 million years for human. 71 Mahayugas constitute a manvantara, and 14 manvantaras constitute a cycle, kalpa. One kalpa is one of Brahma's days, and the universe is destroyed at the end of a kalpa. Each manvantara is ruled over by Manu. In the present kalpa, 6 manvantaras have already passed, and the names of these 6 Manu who ruled were Swayambhu Manu, Svarachisha, Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata, and Chakshusha. The name of the 7th Manu who rules over the 7th manvantara of the present kalpa is Vaivasvata. The titles of the 7 great sages, Saptarishi, as well as the title of Indra, change from manvantara to manvantara. The gods also change. In the present Vaivasvata Manvantara, the 7 great sages are Rishi Atri, Rishi Vasishka, Kashyapa, Gautama, Bharadvaja, Vishvamitra, and Jamadagni. The gods now are the Sadhyas, the Rudras, the Vishvadevas, the Vasus, the Maruts, the Adityas, and the 2 Ashvinis. There will be 7 Manus in the future before the universe is destroyed. 5 of these Manus will be known as Savarni Manu. The remaining 2 will be called Bhutya and Ruchya. You have probably forgotten by now that Kashyapa and Aditi had a son named Vivasvana. This was the sun god known as Surya or Martanda. Surya was married to Samjna, Vishvakarma's daughter. They had two sons. The first son was Vaivasvata Manu, and the second son was Yama or Shraddhadeva, the god of death. Yama had a twin sister named Yamuna. The son's energy was so strong that Samjna could not bear to look at her husband. Through her powers, she created an image from her own body that looked exactly like her. This image was called Chhaya, shadow. Samjna told Chhaya, I cannot bear the energy of my husband. I am going off to my father's house. Stay here, pretend to be Samjna, and look after my children. Under no circumstance tell anyone, certainly not to my husband, that you are not Samjna. I will do as you have asked me to, replied Chhaya. But the moment someone curses me or pulls me by the hair, I shall be forced to reveal the truth. Samjna went to her father Vishvakarma and told him what she had done. Vishvakarma kept asking her to return to her husband, but this Samjna refused to do. Instead, she went to the land known as Uttarakuru and started to live there as a man. Meanwhile, Surya, who had not realized that Samjna had been replaced by Chhaya, had two sons through Chhaya. They were named Savarni Manu and Shani, planet Saturn. As soon as her own children were born, Chhaya no longer displayed as much of love for Samjna's children as she used to do. Vaivasvata Manu was a quiet sort of person and he ignored the implied neglect, but Yama was not that tolerant. Besides, he was also younger. He raised his legs to kick Chhaya. At this, Chhaya cursed Yama that his legs would fall off. Yama went and complained to Surya. I have not really kicked her, he said. I only threatened her. And does a mother have ever cursed her children? I cannot undo the curse, replied Surya. At best I can reduce its severity. Your legs will not actually fall off. Some of the flesh from your legs will fall off onto the earth and create worms. Thereby you will be freed of your curse. But nevertheless, Surya felt that there was some trust in Yama's asking whether a mother would ever curse her children. He texted Chhaya with the trust, but Chhaya would not reveal anything. Surya then grasped her by the hair and threatened to curse her. Since her conditions were now violated, Chhaya blurted out the truth. In extremely angry mood, Surya dashed off to Vishvakarma's house. Vishvakarma tried to cool him down. It is all because of your excess energy that this has happened, exclaimed Vishvakarma. If you permit, I will shave off some of the extra energy. Then Samjna will be able to look at you. Surya agreed to this proposition. With a shaved off energy, Vishvakarma manufactured Vishnu Chakra, a weapon like a bladed discus. Surya found out that Samjna was in Uttarakuru in the form of a man. He joined her there in the form of a horse. As horses they had two sons named Nasatya and Dasra. Since Ashva means horse, the sons were also known as the two Ashvinis, and became the physicians of the gods of Ayurveda, medicine. Surya and Samjna then gave up their equine form and lived happily ever after. Vaivasvata Manu had no children, and he arranged for a sacrifice so that he might have a son. 9 sons were born as a result of this sacrifice. Their names were Ikshvaku, Nabhaga, Drishta, Sharyati, Naryashvyanta, Pramshu, Rishta, Karusha, and Prishadhra. Manu also made an offering to the two gods Mitra and Varuna. As a result of this offering, a daughter named Eva was born. Buddha was a son of Chandra, and Buddha and Eva had a son named Purarava. Subsequently, thanks to a boon conferred on her by Mitra and Varuna, Eva became a man named Sudyumna. Sudyumna's sons were Utkava, Gaya, and Vinatashva. Utkava ruled in Orissa, Gaya in the region that is also called Bodh Gaya, and Vinatashva in the west. Sudyumna was not entitled to rule since he had early been a woman. He lived in the city known as Pratisthana. Pururava inherited this later on. When Vaivasvata Manu died, his 10 sons divided up the earth among themselves. Ikshvaku ruled in the central region. He had 100 sons, the eldest of whom was named Vikukshi. Vikukshi came to be known as Shashada, thereby hence a tail. Ikshvaku wanted to organize sacrifice, and he sent his son Vikukshi to the forest to fetch some meat for the sacrifice. While hunting for game, Vikukshi felt very hungry and ate up some of the meat. This was a sacrilege, and the sage Vasishka advised Ikshvaku to banish Vikukshi from his kingdom, because the meat that he had eaten had been the meat of a rabbit. Vikukshi came to be known as Shashada. Rabbit means Shashaka. But after Ikshvaku died, Vikukshi returned to his father's kingdom and began to rule there. This was the kingdom of Ayodhya. One of Vikukshi's sons was Kakutsha, and Rama of Ramayana fame was born in this line. Kubalashva was one of the kings descended from Kakutsha. Kubalashva's father was named Vrihadashva. After Vrihadashva had ruled for many years, he decided to retire to the forest. He therefore prepared to hand over the kingdom to his son, Kubalashva. But learning of King Vrihadashva's resolve, a sage named Uttanka came to meet the king. "Don't go to the forest right now," Uttanka told the king. "My hermitage Ashrama is on the shores of the ocean and is surrounded by sand in all directions. A strong Rakshasa named Thunhu lives under the sand. He is so strong that even the gods have been unable to kill him. Once every year, Thunhu exhales his breath, and this raises a tremendous cloud of sand and dust. For an entire week, the sun remains shrouded in dust, and for the whole week, there are earthquakes as a result of Thunhu's exhalation. This is disturbing my meditation, tapasya, and you can't very well go away to the forest without first doing something about Thunhu. Only you are capable of killing him. I have accumulated a lot of power as a result of my tapasya, and I will give this to you if you kill Thunhu." Vrihadashva told Uttanka that there was no need for Vrihadashva himself to kill Thunhu. He would go to the forest as he had decided. His son Kubalashva was perfectly capable of killing Thunhu and would accompany Uttanka. Kubalashva and his 100 sons went to the shores of the ocean where all the sand was. Kubalashva asked his sons to start digging so that they might find Thunhu. Thunhu attacked Kubalashva's son and killed all of them but 3. The 3 who escaped were named Dridashva, Chandrashva and Kapilashva. But Thunhu himself was killed by Kubalashva. As a result of this great feat, Kubalashva came to be known as Thunhumara. The sage Utanka blessed Kubavashva, and by the sage's blessing, Kubavashva's dead son went straight to heaven. From Dhiridashva was descended a king named Trayaruni. Trayaruni was a righteous king and followed all the religious dictates. But Trayaruni's son Satyavrata was quite the opposite and refused to follow the righteous path. King Trayaruni's chief priest was the great sage Vasishka. Vasishka advised the king that his evil son should be banished from the kingdom. Trayaruni accepted the sage's advice. Consequently, Satyavrata started to live with outcast Chandalas outside the kingdom. After some time, Trayaruni relinquished his kingship and went away to the forest. The kingdom had no king and degenerated into anarchy. The absence of a king is also frowned upon by the gods, and for 12 years there was a terrible drought. Vishvamitra was another great sage. While all this was going on, Vishvamitra was not present in the kingdom. He had gone away to perform tapasya on the shores of the ocean, having left his wife and children in a hermitage ashrama that was in the kingdom. But because there was such a long spell of drought, there was also famine in the kingdom. People started to starve. Vishvamitra's wife decided to sell her son so that she might have some food to eat. She tied a rope round the son's neck and took him to the marketplace. There she sold him in exchange for 1,000 cows. Since the rope had been tied around the son's neck, he came to be known as Gawava. But Satyavrata discovered the terrible straits Vishvamitra's family was in. He freed Gawava and started to take care of Vishvamitra's wife and children. Satyavrata had not been terribly fond of Vasishka. He blamed the sage for his banishment. When there was famine everywhere, Satyavrata stole Vasishka's cow. He killed the cow and served the meat to Vishvamitra's sons, apart from eating it himself. Vasishka was in a terrible rage when he got to know about this accident. He cursed Satyavrata. "You have committed 3 things, Shanku," Vasishka told Satyavrata. "Firstly, you have injured your father Trayaruni. Secondly, you have stolen a killed cow. Thirdly, you have eaten beef, a forbidden meat. Because of these 3 things, you will henceforth be known as Trishanku and be eternally cursed." Satyavrata had, however, taken care of Vishvamitra's family when the sage was away on his meditation. After Vishvamitra returned, he was very happy to learn about that Trishanku had done and offered to grant him a boon. Trishanku desired the boon that he might be allowed to go to heaven in his own physical body. Thanks to Vishvamitra's immense powers, even this virtually impossible task was accomplished. Trishanku became king in Trayaruni's kingdom, and Vishvamitra acted as his chief priest. Trishanku's son was Harishchandra, and from Harishchandra was descended a king named Bahu. Bahu devoted too much time to pleasurable pursuit. The upshot of this was that the defense of the kingdom was not properly taken care of. Enemy kings seized this opportunity to attack Bahu's kingdom. They drove Bahu out, and Bahu went off to the forest with his wife Yadavi. The enemy kings who dislodged Bahu were led by the Haiha and Talanjaha kings. They were aided by the Shakas, Yavanas, Paradas, Cambodias, and Pahlavas. King Bahu died in the forest. his wife Yadavi desired to die on her husband's funeral pyre. But since Yadavi was pregnant at the time, the sage Urva persuaded her that such an act would be sin. He brought Yadavi to his own hermitage and began to take care of her. Bahu had also had a second wife, and she had once tried to poison Yadavi. The poison had, however, done Yadavi no harm, and emerged when the baby was born. Since the baby was born together with poison, he came to be known as Sagara. The sage Urva took care of Sagara's education. He imparted to Sagara the knowledge of all the Shastras and also the usage of weapons. Among other things, Sagara acquired the skill of using a divine weapon known as Agnya Astra. When he grew up, Sagara attacked the Kaihaya king and defeated them through the use of Agnya Astra. He then defeated the Shakas, Yavanas, Paradas, Cambodias and Pahlavas and was about to kill them all. But these enemy kings fled to the sage Vasishka for refuge, and Vasishka persuaded Sagara not to kill his enemies. Instead, the heads of the Shakas were half shaven off. The Yavanas and Cambodians had their heads completely shaven. The Pahlavas were instructed that they would have to keep birds. These enemy kings also lost all right to follow the religion laid down in the Vedas. Among the other kings whom Sagara defeated were the Konasarpas, the Mahishakas, the Darvas, the Khovas, and the Kiravas. King Sagara had two wives. The first was named Keshini, and she was the daughter of the king of Vidarbha. The Brahma Purana does not tell us the name of the second wife, but from the Mahabharata we know that it was Sumati. Keshini and Sumati had no sons. They therefore began to pray to Urva so that they might have son. Urva was pleased at these prayers and said, "Both of you will have sons, but one of you will have a single son, and the other will have 60,000 sons. Tell me who wants what?" Keshini asked for a single son, and Sumati asked for 60,000 sons. In due course, Keshini gave birth to a son named Panchajnana. Sumati gave birth to a gourd. Inside the gourd there was a lump of meat. The gourd was placed inside a pot full of clarified butter, and from the lump of meat were born 60,000 sons. King Sagara proceeded to conquer the entire earth. As a recognition of this conquest, he initiated an Ashwamedha Yajna, horse sacrifice. In this ceremony, the sacrificial horse is left free to wander all over the earth. The 60,000 sons accompanied the horse as its guards. The horse eventually reaches the shores of the ocean that lies towards the southeast. While Sagara's sons were resting, the horse was stolen. The sons started to look for the horse and began to dig up the sands in their search. In this process they came upon the sage Kapila. Kapila had been meditating, and his meditation was disturbed by the terrible din that Sagara's sons made. He gazed at them in fury, and all but 4 of the sons were burned to ashes. The 4 sons who were saved were named Varhiketu, Suketu, Dharmaketu, and Panchajnana. The Brahma Purana is slightly confused here. Was Panchajnana Keshini's son or Sumati's son? There is some inconsistency with the account given in the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata it is Keshini who gave birth to 60,000 sons, and it is Sumati who had a single son named Asamanjna. Also in the Mahabharata all 60,000 sons were burnt to ashes. The Brahma Purana also tells us that the sacrificial host was obtained by Sagara from the ocean. That is the reason why the ocean is referred to as Sagara. To come back to the account given in the Brahma Purana, Pachanya's son was Amshumana's son was Dilipa. Dilipa had a son named Bhagiratha. Bhagiratha brought down the river Ganga from heaven to earth, and thus redeemed his ancestors who had been burned to ashes by Kapila. It was because of this that the river Ganga came to be known as Bhagirathi. From Bhagiratha was descended Radhu. Radhu's son was Aja. Aja's son Dasharatha, and Dasharatha's son Ramachandra. There was a sage named Atri. Atri performed very difficult tapasya. So difficult was the tapasya that Atri's energy was thrown up into the sky. The sky could not bear this energy and hurled it down onto the earth. The energy that then gave birth to Soma or Chandra, the moon god. Brahma took Chandra up into his chariot and drove the chariot around the earth 21 times. From whatever energy was left after Chandra had been created, the helps were born. Chandra also performed very difficult tapasya. For 100 such Padma years, Chandra meditated. After the meditation was over, Brahma appointed Chandra lord over the seas, herbs, brahmanas, and the oceans. Chandra also performed a Rajasuya Yajna, royal sacrifice, as a celebration of his lordship. This gave him a lot of pomp, glory, wealth, and respect. But all this merely served to turn Chandra's head. The Guru teacher of the gods was the sage Brihaspati. Brihaspati had a wife named Tara, and Chandra abducted Tara. Despite the gods and the sages asked Chandra to return Tara, the moon god would not listen. A terrible war then raged over Tara, the gods fighting for Brihaspati and the demons fighting for Chandra. Shukracharya, the guru of the demon, fought on the Chandra's side, and Shiva fought on the Brihaspati's side. This war, Samgrama, came to be known as Tarakamaya Samgrama, since it was fought over Tara. Finally Brahma intervened and a truce was called. But Chandra and Tara had had a son, and Brihaspati refused to accept this son as his own. This son was Buddha. As you already know, Buddha married Eva, and they had a son named Pururava. The Brahma Purana describes several kings belonging to the lunar dynasty. In the lunar dynasty there was born a powerful king named Nahusha. He married Viraja, and they had 6 sons named Yati, Yajati, Samyati, Ayati, Yati, and Suyati. Yati became a hermit. So also Yayati was not the eldest. He was crowned king after Nahusha. Yayati had 2 wives. The first was Devayani, daughter of Shukracharya, and the second was Sharmishtha, daughter of Vrishaparva, the king of the Danavas. Devayani had 2 sons named Yadu and Turvasu, and Sharmishtha had 3 sons named Thruya, Anu, and Puru. Yayati conquered the whole earth and ruled over it. When he became old, he divided the earth among his 5 sons. Yadu was given the lands to the east, Puru the lands in the center, Turvasu the lands to the south, and southeast Truya, those to the north, and Anu, those to the west. Yayati gave up his weapons and decided to travel throughout the world. He called Yadu to him and said, I wish to explore the world, and my old age is a hindrance. Please accept my old age and give me your youth in return. Yadu refused. I will not, he said. One cannot eat well when one is old. Neither can one pleasure the comforts of the world. Old age is not pleasant. Ask one of my brothers instead. Yadu's refusal angered Yayati. He cursed Yadu as that he or her descendants would never be kings. Yayati next requested Truya, Turvasu and Anu, but they too refused and were similarly cursed by their father. But Puru agreed to his father's request and gladly accepted the old age. He was blessed by his father. After many years had passed, Yayati got tired of the world and returned Puru's youth to him. He accepted back his old age and retired to the forest to meditate. From Puru was descended King Bharata, after whom the land came to be known as the Bharatavarsha. Also in this line was King Kuru, after whom all the descendants came to be known as Kauravas. This sacred place named Kurukshetra owes its name to King Kuru. From Turvasu were descended the kings of Pandya, Kerala, Kova and Chova. From Truya were descended the kings of Gandhara. The horses of the Gandhara kingdom are famous. Yadu had 5 sons, Sahasrada, Payoda, Kroshtu, Nila and Anjika. Sahasrada's descendants were Haihayas, among whom the most famous was Kartavirya Arjuna. Kartavirya Arjuna pleased the sage Dattatreya and became invincible. He also had 1,000 arms. Arjuna's greatest deeds were his defeat and imprisonment of Demon Ravana, king of Sri Lanka. Kroshtu's descendants were Vrishni and Anhaka, and in the Vrishni line was born Lord Krishna. Having heard accounts of the solar and lunar dynasty, the sages requested Ramaharshana, tell us a little about the geography of the world. What does the earth look like? What are its limits? Ramaharshana obliged. The earth is divided into 7 regions, dvipas. Their names are Jambudvipa, Plakshadvipa, Shalmadvipa, Kushadvipa, Kraunchadvipa, Sharkadvipa, and Pushkaradvipa. These regions are surrounded by 7 oceans, and their names are Lavana, Ikshu, Sura, Sarpi, Dadhi, Dutha, and Java. Jambudvipa is the center, and right in the middle of Jambudvipa is the Mount Sumeru. To the south of Sumeru are the mountains Himavana, Himakuta, and Nishadha. And to the north of Sumeru are the mountains Nila, Shveta, and Shringi. Jambudvipa itself is divided into several regions. For example, Sumeru is in the middle of Ilavrita-Varsha. Bharatavarsha is to the south of Sumeru. To the east of Sumeru is Bhadrashva-Varsha, and to the west is Ketumala-Varsha. Hari-Varsha lies to the south, and Ramyaka-Varsha to the north. Still further north is Hiranyamaya-Varsha, and beyond that Uttarakuru-Varsha. Brahma city is on the peak of mountain Sumeru. It is there that the river Ganga descends from the heaven and gets divided into 4 tributaries. Sita flowers eastwards, Chakshu westwards, Bhadra northwards, and Alakananda southwards, into Bharatavarsha. There are 7 major mountain ranges in Bharatavarsha, and their names are Mahendra, Malya, Sakhya, Shuktimana, Riksha, Vindhya, and Pariyayatra. Bharatavarsha itself is divided into 9 regions, Dvipas. The name of 8 of them regions are Indradvipa, Kasyarumana, Tamraparna, Gabhastimana, Nagadvipa, Saumya, Gandharva, and Varuna. The ninth regions is completely surrounded by the ocean in all directions. To the east of Bharatavarsha live the Kiratas, Khantas, and to the west the Yavanas, the people who eat meat. Below the east lie the 7 regions of the underworld Patava. The names are Attava, Vitava, Nitava, Sutava, Tavatava, Rasatava, and Patava. The deities Danavas and the snakes Sarpa live there. The underworld is a wonderful place, more beautiful than heaven itself. The sage Narada once went on a trip to the underworld and was bowled over by its beauty. It is full of palaces and jails. The sun rises there but does not radiate too much of heat. The moon also rises, but its beams are not at all chilly. The forests are populated by beautiful trees, and the ponds are cheek with the lotus flowers. The songs of cuckoo birds are heard everywhere. Below the underworld sleeps a great snake known as Shesha or Ananta. It has 1,000 hoods, all covered with gels. In fact, the snake is really Vishnu, is one of his various forms. Also part of the world are hells, Naraka, presided over by Yamaraja, the god of death. Those are full of weapons, fire and poison, and sinners are sent there to be punished. Things that are punished by dispatch to one of the several hells are lying, murder, killing cows, destroying cities, drinking, killing brahmanas, theft, selling wine or hair, criticizing the Vedas, insulting elders, making weapons, selling the leg or meat, dabbling in astronomy, selling salt, destroying forest needlessly, killing sheep or deer, cheating and studying under one's own son. Each sinner receives a punishment that is in proportion to the severity of his sin. Of course, if one performs penance, prayashchita, for one's sins, one need not go to Naraka. The best form of penance is praying to Krishna. The S, Prithvi or Bhuloka, extends up to those parts of the sky that can be lit up by the rays of the sun and the moon. The expanse from there to the solar circle is known as Bhuvarloka, and the holy sages live there. Above the solar circle and the lunar circle, and beyond it in succession, comes the region of Mercury, Buddha, Venus, Shukra, Mars, Mangala, Jupiter, Brihaspati, Saturn, Shani, the Great Bear constellation Saptarishi, and the pole star Dhruva. The region from the solar circle to the Dhruvaloka is known as a heaven, Svarloka or Svarga. Beyond Dhruvaloka is Maharaloka, and further away Jnanaloka. Brahma sons live in Jnanaloka. Beyond Jnanaloka are Tapaloka and Satyaloka. At the end of Kalpa, all the 3 lokas, region of Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka and Svargaloka, are destroyed. But the 4 lokas, regions of Mahaloka, Jnanaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka are not destroyed. There is an ocean to the south of Bharatavarsha. On the shores of this great ocean there is a land named Ondra or Utkava, present Arisa. Utkava is populated by the religious people, and the Brahmanas who live there are learned in the Vedas. They are very good priests, learned in the Puranas and the Shastras, and skilled in the art of the sacrifice. In the land of of Utkala there is an image of the sun Surya known as Konaditya. The word Aditya also means the sun, as does the word Arka. Thus, Kanaditya is the same as Kanarka, a corruption of the latter word being Kanaraka. The image of Konaditya is so wonderful that even if one gazes at the image, all one's sins are forgiven. All around the temple there is a sand, but nevertheless many trees grow around the temple. The best time to worship the sun there is at the time of sunrise. The one has to face the east and draw a lotus flower on the ground with the red sandalwood. The lotus flower must have exactly 8 petals. A copper vessel has to be placed at the center of the flower and fill it with paddy, sesamum, water, red sandalwood, red flowers and sacred grass. One prays to Surya to descend on the lotus flower that has been grown. If one worships Kanaditya according to these prescribed rites, the sins of 7 preceding generations are forgiven. The 12 Adityas are nothing but different forms of Surya. Their names are Indra, Dhata, Parjanya, Tvashta, Pusha, Aryama, Bhaga, Vivasvana, Vishnu, Amshumana, Varuna and Mitra. As Indra, Surya destroys the enemies of the gods. As Dhata, he creates living beings. As Parjanya, he showers down rain. As Tvashtar, he lives in the trees and herbs. As Pusha, he makes food grains grow. As Aryama, he is in the wind. As Bhaga, he is in the body of all living beings. As Vivasvana, he is in a fire and helps to cook food. As Vishnu, he destroys the enemies of the gods. As Amshumana, he is again in the wind. As Varuna, Surya in the waters, and as a Mitra, he is in the moon and in the oceans. In which months of the year it is a different Aditya who shines. Indra shines in the mouth of Ashvina, Dhata in Kartika, Parjanya in Shravana, Tvashta in Falguna, Pusha in Pusha, Aryama in Vaishakha, Bhaga in Magha, Vivasvana in Jyeshtha, Vishnu in Chaitra, Amshumana in Ashada, Varuna in Bhadra and Mitra in Agrahayana. Vishnu has 1200 rays, Aryamana 1300, Vivasvana 72, Amshumana 15, Parjanya 72, Varuna 1300, Tvashta 1100, Indra 2200, Dhata 1100, Mitra 1000 and Pusha 900. Apart from the names of the 12 Adityas, Surya has 12 other names as well. These are Aditya, Savitar, Surya, Mihira, Arka, Prabhakara, Martanda, Bhaskakara, Bhanu, Chitrabhanu, Divakara and Ravi. Brahma once recounted to the sages the 108 sacred names of Surya. The Brahma Purana lists these names and we reproduce them in 9 groups of 12 names. Surya, Archana, Bhagavana, Tvashta, Pusha, Arka, Savitar, Ravi, Gapstimana, Aja, Kava, Mrityu. Dhatu, Prabhakara, Prithvi, Java, Tejas, Akasha, Vayu, Parayana, Soma, Brihaspati, Shukra, Buddha, Angaraka, Indra, Vivasvana, Diptamshu, Shuchi, Shuri, Shana Ishvara, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Skanda, Vaishravana, Yama, Vaidyuta, Jadhara, Agni, Aindhana, Tejapati, Karmajvala, Vedakarta, Vedanga, Vedavahana, Krita, Treta, Dvapara, Kali, Sarva Sura Shraya, Kava, Kashtha, Muhurta, Kshapa, Yama, Kshana, Samvatsara, Ashvatha, Kavachakra, Vibhavasu, Shashvata, Purusha, Yogi, Vyakta, Sanatana, Kaladyaksha, Prajadyaksha, Vishvakarma, Tamanuda, Varuna, Sagara, Amsha, Джимута, Дживана, Ариха, Пхуташрая, Пхутапати, Сарвалока, Намаскрита, Шаста, Самвартака, Вахни, Сарвади, Алоупа, Ананта, Капила, Пхану, Камада, Сарватамукха, Джая, Вишава, Варада, Сарва Пхута Севита, Мана, Супарна, Пхутади, Шиграга, Пранадхарана, Дханвантари, Тхумакету, Адидева, Адитинандана, Двада Аштма, Рави, Дакша, Пита, Мата и Питамаха. Indradyumna and Purushottama Kshetra. In Satya Yuga there was a king named Indradyumna. He was a very powerful king, as powerful as Indra himself. He was handsome, honest and trustful, learned in the Shastras and the Vedas, and skilled in the use of weapons. His radiance put the sun to shame. Indradyumna was devoted to Vishnu. He once decided that he would worship Vishnu. El Tirtha is a sacred place of the pilgrimage. Indradyumna scanned all the existing tirthas and cities, but none of them satisfied him. None of them he felt was appropriate as a place for worshipping Vishnu. Indradyumna's own capital was the city of Avanti, in the kingdom of Malava. Avanti was a beautiful and a wealthy city, surrounded on all sides by moats and other fortifications. Traders from many countries came there with all sorts of commodities for trading. The roads of the city were lined with shops. The houses were painted white. The king's stables were full of horses and elephants. All citizens of Avanti were pleasant of appearance and happy. Sacrifices were held fairly often. Many were the temples, groves and ponds in Avanti. Any trees that grew on earth could be found there. There was a temple to Shiva in this city. This was known as the temple of Mahakala. The image there was so sacred that worshipping Shiva in the temple of Mahakala was tantamount to performing 1000 Ashwamedha yajnas. The river Shipra flowed past Avanti. On the banks of the river there was a temple to Vishnu known as Govindaswami. Another temple to Vishnu was named Vikramaswami. But Indradyumna was not satisfied with these temples. He wanted to build another temple to Vishnu. He left Avanti to look for a proper place. His soldiers and subjects accompanied the king, so that it looked as if the entire city of Avanti was on the march. After traveling for many days, they arrived on the shores of the southern ocean, the ocean that is known as Lavana Samudra. There were so many waves in the ocean that the ocean itself seemed to be dancing. Marine animals lived in the ocean, and the waters were also the source of the sorts of jewels. Indradyumna began to live on the shores of the ocean. He discovered a place near the ocean that was thick with the flower and fruit trees. Many types of birds gathered there to eat the fruit. This was a place known as Purushottama Kshetra, the city of Puri of modern times. Purushottama Kshetra was a very important tirtha, sacred place. But all knowledge of this tirtha had been hidden until Indradyumna arrived on the scene. There was a reason for this. Many years ago there used to be an image of Vishnu there, where people used to pray. So sacred was the image that all the things of the worshippers were immediately forgiven. The result was that Yama could not punish any of the sinners. They simply prayed to Vishnu's image and escaped. Yama therefore prayed to Vishnu for a solution. Vishnu hid the image under the sand so that no one knew that it existed. Indradyumna liked Purushottama Kshetra. The river Mahanadi or Chitra Power flowed not very far away. The people who lived around the place were religious. He decided that it was the right place for building a temple to Vishnu. On an auspicious day the foundation stone was laid. Indradyumna then got in touch with the kings of Kalinga, Utkala and Kashala. He requested their help in fetching stone for the building of the temple. The king sent their architect to the Vindhya mountain. The stones were gathered from this mountain and brought to Purushottama Kshetra in boats and chariots. Messengers were also sent to several other kings for aid. They came with their armies and with a lot of wealth. Indradyumna told the assembled kings, I wish to accomplish two difficult tasks. The first is to perform an Ashwamedha Yajna here, and the second is to build a temple to Vishnu. Both of these are difficult jobs, particularly the second, but if you help me, I am confident that both jobs can be done. The kings agreed to help. They offered jewels, wealth, gold, clothes, food grains and other objects. The place where the yajna was to be held was made entirely out of gold. In fact, all the objects used in the yajna were made out of gold. Brahmanas from all over Jambudvipa came to witness the sacrifice. They were donated elephants, horses and cows as alms. Never has there been any other sacrifice to rival the one that Indradyumna performed. After the sacrifice was over and the temple built, there remained the more important question of the image. How was it to be made? Indradyumna began to pray to Vishnu for guidance. Vishnu appeared before Indradyumna in a dream and said, Why are you so miserable? When the sun rises, go to the shore of the ocean, there you will find a tree. Half of the tree is in the water and remaining half in the sand. Chop down this tree. Its wood will give you the material for the image. In the morning, Indradyumna went to the seashore and found the tree. It was just as Vishnu has described it to be. With an axe he chopped down the tree. As he was about to slice the trunk in two, two Brahmanas appeared before him. Also Indradyumna did not eat. These two Brahmanas were Vishnu and Vishvakarma in disguise. King, what have you done? Exclaimed the Brahmanas. You have cut down the only tree that was on the shores of the ocean. Forgive me, replied Indradyumna. I wished to make an image of Vishnu. Vishnu was instructed me in a dream that this is the tree from which the image should be made. That's an excellent idea, said the Brahmana who was Vishnu in disguise. There is nothing so holy as a praying to Vishnu. Meet me, my companion. He is as skilled as the great Vishvakarma himself. If you want, he will build the image for you. King Indradyumna agreed, and instructed by Vishnu, Vishvakarma started to build the image. Or to be more accurate, there were the three different images. The first was that of Baladeva or Balarama. This was completely white in color, except for the eyes, which were red. The image was dressed in blue, and a snake held its hood over the Balarama's head. A club and a mace were in Balarama's hands. The second image was Krishna. This was blue in color with eyes like lotus flowers. The image was dressed in yellow and had a chakra in its hand. The third image was that of Krishna's sister Subhadra. This image was golden in color and was dressed in wonderful clothes. When Indradyumna discovered that the images were made in a matter of minutes, He was thunderstruck. He realized that the two Brahmanas could not be mere mortals. He fell at their feet and said, "Please tell me, who are you? You cannot be humans." Vishnu and Vishvakarma then revealed their true selves, and Indradyumna was thrilled. Vishnu blessed the king and told him that he would rule for 10,900 years. And even after Indradyumna died, a place would be reserved for him in heaven. On auspicious days, the three images were instated in the temple. Many years ago, a great destruction prior took place. The earth was shrouded in darkness and nothing could be seen. There was neither sun nor moon. Lightning and thunder crushed mountains and trees. There were showers of meteors. Lakes and rivers dried up. The entire earth burnt with the fire, and the flames of the fire reached down to the underworld. All living beings perished in the fire, including the gods and the demons. There was a sage named Markandeya. While all this was going on, Markandeya was busy meditating. Such was the power of Markandeya's tapasya that the fire dared not touch him. But it is also true that Markandeya was scared of the fire that raged all around him. He suffered from hunger and thirst and forgot all about his tapasya. His lips and throat dried up from fear. Markandeya discovered that there was a banyan tree that was untouched by all this ravage. He retired to the shade of the banyan tree and started to pray to Vishnu. Clouds gathered in the sky. They were thick and dark clouds, and they spread all over the earth. It started to rain, and it poured and it poured. Water was everywhere, and the earth was flooded. The water put out of the fire. It rained continuously for 12 years. The ocean flooded the shores, and the mountains were pulverized. Vishnu slept on the water. Markandeya did not know what to do. There was water everywhere, and he floated on it. But he continued to pray to Vishnu. Vishnu spoke to Markandeya, "Don't be frightened. Markandeya," he said, "you are devoted to me and I shall protect you." Markandeya did not realize that it was Vishnu who was speaking. "Who dares to address me thus?" he demanded. "I am a child that I should be so addressed. I am the great Markandeya, blessed by Brahma himself." But try as he might, Markandeya could not see anyone anywhere. Where had the voice come from then? Had it all been an illusion? Not knowing what to do, he started to pray again to Vishnu. Suddenly he saw the banyan tree floating on the water. A golden bed was spread on the branches of the tree, and on the bed there slept a small boy. Markandeya was exceedingly surprised to see the small boy floating in the middle of the deluge. He was so confused by his illusion that he did not realize that the boy was none other than Vishnu. The boy spoke to Markandeya. "You are tired," said the boy. "You are looking for a refuge. Enter my body and rest for some time." Markandeya was so confused that before he could react, he entered the boy's body through the mouth. Inside the boy's stomach, Markandeya discovered all the worlds, the 7 regions and the 7 oceans, the mountains and the kingdoms were all there. So were all living beings. Markandeya did not know what to make of all this. He started to pray to Vishnu. No sooner than he started, he came out of the boy's mouth. Vishnu now appeared before him and blessed him. The sage spent 1,000 years with Vishnu. Vishnu then asked, "I wish to grant you a boon. What is your desire?" "I want to build a temple to Shiva in Purushottama Kshetra," replied Markandeya. "This will prove to everyone that Vishnu and Shiva are really one and the same." Vishnu granted the boon and Markandeya built a temple to Shiva known as Bhuvaneshwara, Lord of the world. In Satya Yuga, there used to be a king named Shveta. He was such a good king that during his reign people lived for 10,000 years. No one died as a child. Longevity was higher and there was no infant mortality. But there was a sage named Kapala Gautama. Unfortunately, the sage's son died as an infant. The sage brought the dead body to Shveta, and the king resolved that if he could not bring the sage's son back to life within a week, he would immolate himself in a fire. Having thus taken an oath, King Shveta worshipped Shiva with 1,100 blue lotus flowers. Shiva appeared before the king and granted the boon that the infant son might be brought back to life. King Shveta ruled for 1,000 years. He also built a temple to Vishnu in Purushottama Kshetra. The temple that had been built by Indradyumna was known as the temple of Jagatnatha. Shveta's temple was not very far from this and was known as the temple Shvetamadhava. The image in this temple was white as the moon. There was a king of the deities named Vali. He was powerful and invincible. He was also righteous and trustful. The gods could not bear to see Vali's prosperity and began to plot how Vali might be foiled. So well did Vali rule that disease, drought and evil disappeared throughout the three worlds. In desperation the gods approached Vishnu. Please do something about Vali. They requested. You always help us out when we are in trouble. There is no difference between Vali and the gods. So far as I am concerned, replied Vishnu, Vali is devoted to me. I cannot therefore fight with him. But I will think of a way so that his kingdom might be taken away from him and given to you. Vishnu decided to be born as Aditi's son. The son was a dwarf. This was a Vamana Avatara, dwarf incarnation of Vishnu. Vali proposed to organize a horse sacrifice. Many sages came to the sacrifice, and Shukracharya was the chief priest. The dwarf also arrived to witness the yajna. Shukracharya realized that the dwarf was none other than Vishnu. He told King Vali, I suspect that this dwarf is a Vishnu in disguise. He must have come here to ask you for something. Please don't grant him anything without first consulting me. Certainly not, replied Vali. It is good fortune indeed that the great Vishnu has come to my house. What is there to consult about? I shall grant Vishnu whatever he wants. Vali went to the dwarf to ascertain what the dwarf wanted. Vishnu expresses the wish that he might be given as much of land as might be covered in 3 of the dwarf's steppes. This boon Vali readily granted. But no sooner than the boon had been granted, the dwarf adopted a gigantic form. He placed 1 foot on Vali's yajna and 2nd on Brahmaloka. When will I place my 3rd step? Demanded Vishnu. There is no more space left in the entire universe. Find me a place for my 3rd step. Vali smiled and said, place it on my back. Vishnu was charmed at Vali's generosity. He granted Vali the boon that Vali would hold the title of Indra in a future manvantara. He then appointed Vali king of the underworld. But Indra's kingdom of heaven, which Vali had conquered, was returned to Indra. Brahma had all this while being in Brahmaloka. When Vishnu placed his second foot on Brahmaloka, Brahma felt that he should welcome and worship the food. He used holy water from his water pot, Kamandala, to wash the food. The water spilled over from the food and fell on the mountains. Thus the water divided into four. Vishnu accepted the flow that went northwards. The flow that went westwards returned to Brahma's Kamandala. The flow that went eastwards was gathered up by the gods and the sages, but the flow that went southwards got entangled in Shiva's matted hairs. This water was the river Ganga. Om Shakti Hrim, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayana. Om Sachet Ekam Brahma Hrim.